2015 competition was $10,442,707. Our total award was $7,686,653, and that is a difference of $2,756,054. $1,829,894 of those dollars were in transitional housing projects. Around $500,000 was in our HMIS grant, and the remaining were between 2 supportive service only projects that we were intending to reallocate in the next competition, but have now lost the opportunity to do that, and 2 low performing PSH projects who submitted a portion of their previous application late. Across the nation, transitional housing projects were cut by $150 million. Permanent supportive housing projects were increased by $165 million. And that increase was almost entirely due to the $151 million transitional housing cuts. And we'll get into, as I'm moving through this, some more information we've received from HUD. As far as Housing First projects that committed to using Housing First practices received more points in the competition, were more likely to be funded than those that did not, and over 80 projects totaling nearly $9 million were not funded. But if they had committed to using Housing First practices, they would have been funded. That's coming directly from HUD. I think you all have heard us talk about reallocation and systems change. We had a plan in place. We were planning on working with our TH projects over the next 2 years as to not overwhelm ourselves or any of you, and also to, like I already said, reallocate our SSOs in this competition. Our 2-year plan has become a few-month plan. We don't know how many months. We've reached out to all of our remaining transitional housing projects, and HUD's message is very clear. Now is the time to reallocate, or we risk losing funding in the balance of state again in a manner that we just did. And I can say we are not going to allow that to happen. We just simply cannot afford it. HUD's been clear that it's time to retool transitional housing. If we fail to do this again, we, as previously stated, risk losing additional funds in the Texas balance of state that we will have to work doubly hard to get back. If we don't reallocate, it's clear that funding will be reduced and or completely eliminated for transitional housing in the same manner it was in this 2015 competition. So I just want to take a moment to clarify that while the research and HUD priorities regarding transitional housing are clear, this doesn't mean we, as the balance of state, don't see a need for or a value in transitional housing projects. Many of us have operated them. We agree that all types of housing programs need to be in all types of communities, and different types of projects are needed. But we do recognize that the COC is no longer going to fund transitional housing. We greatly value the work our transitional housing projects have done, and many will continue to operate in the balance of state. Of those, that were cut, there's only 2 that we know of at this time that are no longer operating. So we have seen these projects really rally together with their communities and look for alternative funding sources, and we want to assist in them doing that in any way that we can. We absolutely share in this loss with our transitional housing providers, with our communities that were impacted by these cuts. In an effort to fund as many projects as possible, housing projects, we also took a risk, and we were also impacted by these cuts. We lost our HMIS grant, along with 33 other continuums of care in this competition cycle. So it's been a hard few weeks around here. I would say probably the hardest in my professional career and 15 years of working in homeless services, and I would think most people around the table would probably agree. Yeah. You know, and I'm sure that's the same case for most of you who were impacted by the cuts. And we recognize the impact on organizations, staff, and most importantly, clients that you're serving. So just want you all to know, you know, we are behind you. We will do whatever we can to help support you continuing these projects and or applying for rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing bonus projects in your community, you know, if that looks like a direction that you and your organization want to go. We've been in contact with HUD and USICH several times since May 2nd. We have expressed our concerns about how jarring these losses have been for our communities, especially those projects who had already started their new cycle and had been operating only to find out they weren't going to get funding for the work and services they provided for the past few months, some even up to 6 months. We want you all to know we've filed an official appeal with HUD. We hope to have some answers after our regional debrief today. Again, that's the reason we're ending earlier today. We have a COC specific debrief on June 6th where we hope to get even more information. We've been in touch with government officials. We've provided information for local fundraising efforts and appeals. We'll continue to do so. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. As you all can imagine, things have been a little hectic around here, but we are, you know, rallying together and behind you all. So if you need something, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I'm sure, like us, many of you have been seeing all the articles in the news about just the impact of these cuts across the nation and the impacted COCs that had not reallocated projects and had projects that were not low barrier housing first or had large transitional housing stock were the COCs that were impacted the most. Some of you may recall a brief that we put a response out to in December by Urban Initiatives. It was about the 12 largest COCs, and it was in relation to this last NOFA. And of those 12 COCs, the balance of state had the lowest number of low barrier projects and the lowest number of housing first projects. You know, due to the circumstances with our transitional housing stock and based on this information, even in December, you know, Eric's messaging was very clear that we have work to do and we need to do it quickly. I know in that brief he also mentioned that when I came on, I was quite surprised at the number of transitional housing projects that were still getting funded through the COC. So again, I feel like, you know, we knew these things were coming. We could have never anticipated that the blow would come so quickly and in such a large number, but the direction that we've known we needed to go is still very clear. And just for clarification, low barrier projects, meaning they don't screen out potential participants based on too little or no income, active or history of substance abuse, criminal record with exceptions for state mandated restrictions, history of having been or currently being a victim of domestic violence, and housing first, right? In a nutshell, quickly housing clients without preconditions or service participation requirements. I think I wanted to bring that up to remind everyone, and not that you haven't been reminded at all of our meetings, for those of you that attend, that this is the direction we've been heading. This morning, you know, and based on all of these circumstances, everything that's been released by HUD, which for HUD has been very clear for once, which I guess we can appreciate that aspect of this. But due to all of these circumstances and based on guidance from our HUD TA providers, the board took some action this morning that's going to significantly impact the projects in the balance of state moving forward. It's going to be challenging, but it will put us in the best position to start rebuilding the Texas balance of state and to transform our program models. you know, again, it's all the things we were planning on doing. It's just on a much, much shorter timeline. We're ready to take this challenge on. We believe we can make these changes a reality by supporting each other. I think also being realistic about what projects do and don't have capacity to meet the COC program requirements and preferred project types. Considering all of this, our focus is really been lasered in and will be for a little while on the COC and ESG projects in the balance of state right now. We absolutely need LHCs to be more involved in these projects, and in order to maximize funding and additional programs through the COC to develop a housing crisis response system. You hear us talking about systems change, about coordinated entry, about prioritization. Those are all the things we need to really start working on and have been doing a lot of work on even prior to this announcement. And again, I said I was going to do a lot of talking. I hope y'all are all staying awake. If you need to stand up, stretch, do a jumping jack, make funny faces at HUD that no one else can see, feel free to do that. So I'm going to move on to HUD's homelessness policy and program priorities for the 2016 NOFA. So the NOFA has not been released. Registration has been released. These priorities are very, very clear. Again, thank you for the clarity, HUD, because we sure didn't get it in the last NOFA. So one, creating a systemic response to homelessness. That's coordinated entry and system-wide performance measures, right? You keep hearing us talk about it. We need you to start letting us help you do it. Lowering barriers, prioritizing the most vulnerable, housing as quickly as possible, promoting participant choice, planning as a system, not sitting around a table sharing resources, which is great and can be fun, sitting around a table housing people, not duplicating services, shifting funding that you're not using, being open, transparent. You know, if there are long-standing issues within partners in your community, now is the time to squash those, move forward. We all have the same goal. There's no time for that. It's too big of a risk for all of us right now to spend time dealing with those kinds of issues. There are people on the streets. There are people dying on the streets. This is what we do. Priority 2, strategically allocate resources. So a comprehensive review of project quality performance and system performance. So maximizing the use of mainstream benefits. I'm going to address that a little bit in detail later. Housing providers providing housing, right? Part of that is reviewing and reallocating our transitional projects, which we're going to do. Priority 3, ending chronic homelessness. 4, ending family homelessness. 5, youth homelessness. 6, veteran homelessness. 7, housing first approach, right? Very clear. Again, we appreciate this, HUD. Thank you. So moving on, so to reallocation. So the vote that I brought up earlier, and this is happening all around the country, you know, for those COCs that still had significant amount of transitional housing stock. We were, you know, one of our first meetings with our HUD TA providers, we recognized the writing on the wall. And we also asked them, okay, we need to reallocate our transitional housing projects. However, what about our youth and DV projects? They are the two transitional projects that do have some data and best practices behind them. We were very clearly told it's got to go. We know that we need to continue serving these populations, and again, we're taking a risk by renewing any transitional housing funding, which is why this morning the board voted that in the 2016 competition, we will not be renewing any transitional housing projects in the balance of state. We're going to offer the option of reallocation to those projects. Those will be for permanent supportive housing projects, serving chronically homeless individuals or families, and or rapid rehousing projects. They will be low barrier. They will be housing first. We've had conversations with all 9 of our remaining transitional projects, and they've gone quite well. Again, we do not feel this is a risk we can take considering what just happened. The other vote the board took this morning was that all projects be a minimum of low barrier and work towards implementing housing first over the next year. So these things that we've been talking about, we're not talking about them anymore. We're doing them. We're going to provide you all with the support needed to make these changes. We're going to talk a little bit more about change in a few minutes as well, but I'm going to get through these kind of quickly. Coordinated entry, again, HUD priority. We know we have unique challenges in the balance of state due to our geography. We are going to be focusing on communities with mandated programs and already selected pilots. This does not mean LHC participation is not crucial. It is absolutely crucial. And LHCs who are not part of communities that either receive federal funding or were a pre-selected pilot, we need you to watch and join these webinars. At the end of this meeting and already in your uploaded documents, we did this at the last meeting too, we've got a list of all of our webinars with links. Please review them. We aren't giving you all these resources because we think they're fun or because we don't have anything else to do. We're doing the work for you so you don't have to go through a bunch of resources. If we're sending something to you, it's because we think it's really important that you read it. And if you have questions about it, contact us. You know, it took major cities years to prepare for coordinated entry. I can speak personally about that in Austin, and a lot of the work I did with other places while I was implementing in Austin, Houston, the state of West Virginia. It doesn't have to take that long. We're really giving you all the tools. We're going to work with you and your communities to tailor the system to your community. We've got to hear from you, and we need you to participate in these webinars. We need LHC leadership to work with us. Also, there are now 214 of you counties. There's one THN. Please reach out to us. Ask us questions. If you've listened to the past few webinars, we get giddy, right, when you all ask us questions. It's kind of ridiculous. It doesn't take a lot to make us happy. We're here to help you. You know, we also find that a lot of folks email questions in after the webinars, which is great. Do that, but please know that any question you have will probably be incredibly helpful for someone else on the call. So just really want to encourage you all to engage with us, you know, attend these webinars, ask us questions, reach out to us. Moving on to system-wide performance measures, which also mentioned as a priority for HUD. This is why we all matter. This is not just funded projects. This is why we keep talking about your data, why we want you to run data quality reports, why we want you to use data to inform your program design and your decisions and your population, and to make decisions about who you need to serve based on need, right? Based on need and data, not what you think and not who may be the loudest or they're the most often, but who needs the services the most and who without your services and your housing is most at risk to die on the streets. And we know that this is happening every day. If your shelter is half full all year, use data to determine what the actual housing need is in your community and shift those dollars where they're needed. Otherwise, regardless of your funder, I guarantee you're at risk. Maybe not this year. At some point, someone is going to start looking at this, y'all. We are now. System-wide performance measures, again, everybody that is using our HMIS system, and even those who don't, that participate in our point-in-time count and our housing inventory count, are contributing to this data. we are going to be judged as a system like never before by HUD. They're looking at the length of time persons remain homeless, the extent to which persons who exit homelessness to permanent housing destinations return to homelessness. So recidivism, right? It's always kind of blown me away that we weren't already looking at this in our communities, and some were. I know I did this for projects that I was overseeing. Also know there were challenges doing this with HMIS. Well, there aren't going to be anymore. There probably will be initially, but this is where we're headed, right? So, you know, it's great. You house 300 people. That's amazing. Well, where did they go? And how many of them re-entered the shelter system? So if you housed 300 people and 45% of them re-entered your shelter system within a year, we need to do something differently. We'll be looking, as we do with the PIT, but this is going to be based on HMIS data and our PIT numbers, the number of homeless individuals and families in our system. Job and income growth for homeless individuals and families in COC funded projects, number of persons becoming homeless for the first time, homeless prevention and housing placement of persons defined by category 3. That will not apply to our COC, at least initially, and 7, successful housing placement. So we're doing a look back period to 2012 on all of these measures. We know they're going to be in the NOFA. We don't know what they're going to look like. This is just more movement as we start looking at our systems, right? And we're looking at the COC as a system, a whole system, and then to the system in your communities and how you're going to fit into these measures. As I said, our focus has to be our COC projects right now. I've made mention several times in the past few weeks to us being firefighters, and I know all of you in this field can relate to that. So right now, COC and ESG, we are very laser focused on them. Systems change, coordinated entry. We're going to be closely examining grant spending and project utilization more than ever before, right? Again, if you have a permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing project that's utilized, you know, an average of 50 to 60% over the course of a project year, or you're not spending all of your dollars, we need to look at where those dollars need to go. This is a year of change for the Texas balance of state. And so I think Soph used this in a CE webinar. I don't know if anyone else on the call can relate to this, but we certainly can, right, on both sides of that. And I'm stealing some words from a friend and mentor who, you either love him or you hate him, Ian DeYoung, and I'm also sitting next to my boss, and I'm going to use some language he might not like. So this is from one of Ian's blogs, and again, me reading to you, and it is titled, "Transitions Suck." Okay, we don't resist change, we resist transitions. Change is exciting. There's a possibility of something new. There's a possibility to fix something that's not working. There's a possibility to make improvements. And the reality is, when most people or organizations are presented with the possibility of change, there's uninformed optimism, right? I think we've all been here. I've definitely experienced this with CE in Austin. Everybody's really excited. Half the people may be really scared. But as things start to change, they experience informed pessimism. Why? Because change is hard. Is it because they think they were led to a place because of lies, spin, or misinformation? Perhaps. I think it would have done us some good to consider some of these factors as we did our initial CE work in communities. But just some things to consider. You tried to change people. People cannot be forced or coerced to change over the long term. They cannot be bribed or bargained with to change over the long term. If change is going to last and have benefits, people can only choose to change. That comes from facts, data. Appealing to personal values and assessing needs. They must feel the change is important to them, and they must feel ready to make the change. To me, that isn't applicable just to leadership and staff, but clients as well, right? You had a great plan, but you forgot to socialize it with people, or you neglected to invest in the training to help them understand how to achieve what you wanted done that is different. They see the change as representing you, not representing them or their skill set and knowledge. I think this summarizes perfectly what we're doing now with coordinated entry. You forgot that misery loves company and that one person disgruntled by change tried to find others feeling the same way. In the absence of finding other disgruntled people, they tried to create some resentment. You failed to create a safe space for people to air their dissenting opinions. You failed to realize there are existing commitments that are stronger than the commitment to make change. Think of the person that is more committed to high-calorie foods than healthy food, or more committed to sleep than getting up to go to the gym. I fall into that category. It's not that they do not like the idea of being fit and healthy, it's just that they are more committed to things that get in the way of that. So if you look or consider all of the things I just mentioned, which are not exhaustive, they lead to one thing: people resisting transitioning to something new. So transitions suck. We're hardwired to consider the hypothetical, but we're also hardwired to be protective of our way of doing things and the routines we've established. And if we want people to be malleable and consider the possibility of difference, we need to start from realizing that if change were easy, accomplishing great feats and wrestling complex issues to the ground would be a piece of cake. It simply isn't. I believe THN can work with you all through this change. We have some changes we need to work through and are working through. I believe you all can make these changes. It doesn't mean it's going to be all sunshine and roses. It's going to be challenging, but you know, something really worth doing is never easy. And to reach this vision, our approach to addressing homelessness has to change. And a big piece of that is this housing crisis response system or resolution system that you keep hearing from us about. And I think it's ending homelessness. We have to change our idea of what our field is to do, and it's not just a funding shift, right? It's not just reallocation. It's not just a change of those programs, though we need those things. Some of those things we don't just need, we have to do, but beginning to see our role as the people who get people who have nowhere to live housed, not the people who fix people, not the people who try to end poverty, not the people who provide job training or treat substance abuse or mental illness. Of course, our clients need a lot of those services, but the homeless service system needs to be the system that helps get homeless people into housing. That's it. The homeless system is not the system that is expert at helping people with no housing to quickly secure it. Like, if we don't do that, who will? So there's a whole system, anti-poverty system, designed to help people with other needs that impact their long-term well-being, education, employment, behavioral health. There are affordable housing advocates and nonprofit housing developers who work to create more units and permanent subsidies. We liken prioritization often to emergency rooms, right? You'll see that in the trainings with Ian. I had a random conversation with it about a contractor watching a Spurs game who happened to have a very strong connection to one of my former clients. It was kind of crazy, but we're ensuring these clients, just like an ED gets an appointment with the specialist for follow-up or making suggestion for life changes, we get these households on the road to greater well-being and improvement, but it is not our responsibility to be laser focused on doing what no one else does well, right? Helping the people with the most difficulty getting into housing to get into housing and keep it. That needs to be our mission. And I recognize in the communities you all are working in, you feel like you have to be all those things. And I'm not also saying in some cases you are, but there are mainstream systems we need to be relying on to provide assistance. And it's also about targeting, right? I'm not saying your permanent supportive housing, supportive services don't need to be really intense, but I'm saying let's start housing people. Let's start housing people. Let's focus on that, you know, and develop community partnerships to address the rest. Figure out what it is that your organization does and does really well and provide that service to the community. If you're trying to be an employment specialist and a mental health provider and a benefit specialist and a counselor, you know, I don't think anyone can do all of those things well. Excuse me. What we can do well is get people off the streets and help keep them there. And again, I realize this is a huge shift in the way projects and the balance of state have been providing services, but it's a shift that needs to happen. We are ready. We are ready to support you through this. We are ready to work out the kinks with you. We're ready to listen to you vent. We're ready to hear how hard and terrible and awesome this is going to be. We hope that you're ready to. And I just also want to say, and this has come up a few times during the week, I know you all are busy. I've been on that side of this. But right now, we cannot afford to not have communication with you all. We need you to read resources we are sending you. We need you to respond promptly to our emails, to our request, to reach out, you know, in the face of all these changes. We need to hear from you. And you also need to recognize, just as we're asking you all to change the way you're doing business, we are as well. We're having to look at who to prioritize and how, right? We know where our focus is. I've brought it up multiple times in this meeting. That doesn't mean you don't contact us. That doesn't mean we can't provide you with great resources and we can't get you on the road to where you need to be. It does mean we may tell you we can't right now. Please be understanding in that we've got to get the COC functioning in a better place, because without that, none of the support exists. So really laser focus on target with COC, ESG, and HUD priorities so that we can serve you all in the way that we want to and the way that we know you need to be served. If everybody is still awake, I know this was a lot of talking. I appreciate you all listening. I hope we have some questions. And again, I think I can speak for everyone at THN when I just say, and we talked about this on Monday, we are all here for one reason, and we all feel privileged to do the work that we do and to do this work with you. We recognize with these reallocations and these cuts, you know, it's going to be tough, and it's going to be tough for a little while, and some of our grantees won't be our grantees anymore. That doesn't mean you are not still very much a part of the system, and we don't want to continue working with all of you. So I'm going to stop there and see if we have questions and see if Eric has anything to add.
I just wanted to add a few things. And we had a good question that came in too, so I'm going to address that as well. But everything Cameron said, I mean, that's what it's been like around here, and everything she said about making these changes and adapting, that's what we need to do, THN and our continuum of care. I mean, this continuum of care has been around for about 10 years now. And this has definitely been the hardest year around the time of year that the HUD funding announcements come out. We did see this change coming. We just didn't see it coming as hard and as the cuts being as deep as they were. So we're trying to respond just like you are in your communities. We know that you will respond, as we will. We know that you have, over the years, you've gone through a lot of changes. A lot of you probably haven't been around long enough to know, but I remember way back when continuum of care was so tough to wrap our head around. And then HMIS. And so HUD they're leading us into the housing first, low barrier movement, I guess you could say, whether or not we want to go there, but we know we need to go there. We know that that is what works. And what Cameron said about putting people in housing, that's what we do. We need to get people out of homelessness and into housing. And that brings me to the question we received as we're asking you all to change and adapt to the results we have recently gone through. We are having to change, and the question was, how is THN going to change? One way we're not going to change is we are not going to quit assisting you in your communities. We're not going to quit serving as the continuum of care or HMIS lead. We will continue on with those supports, not only in the balance of state, but we'll also support the entire state through advocacy and education. The challenge we have immediately is with HMIS. We will continue to be the HMIS lead. We are looking for alternative funding, and I am very optimistic that we will find that. I've been making calls every day, so I think that my request and our applications for funding will eventually come through, but we will make sure that you are covered with HMIS. And as you know, you'll continue to be covered with our continuum of care planning and operations. So I would just encourage you to, like Cameron said, reach out to us, communicate with us. Please respond to our communication with you. And then if you just need to reach out and vent, do that. I've had a lot of people do that over the past month or a little bit less than a month, and I've done that too. So I appreciate those of you who have allowed me to do that. So I think I rambled long enough, but we do have a few more questions that we will answer as we go along. Please type more in, and if okay, we're getting a lot in now. So, so we're going to go ahead and start addressing these. It may be Cameron, it may be me, it may be someone else in here. Okay. These questions have been asked. Sorry, everyone. We're looking at where we need to start with the questions.
Rachel Flores asked about the grants, and then Cam Mossberger has one at the bottom.
Okay. So Rachel asked a question: what grants will be eliminated? Well, the grants that were already cut, we already know, right? They lost funding in Tier 2. So we've got 9 grants we're working on reallocating. If those projects choose not to reallocate, or THN staff and board determine they don't have the capacity to reallocate, then we will reallocate for them, meaning they will not be able to apply for renewal funding. So we don't know that yet. The projects that got cut, those were announced on May 2nd.
The important thing is that we, as a continuum of care, do not put ourselves in the position of losing any more funding.
Right.
We have to keep what we have and use it for housing. Permanent housing.
I think we answered the HMIS question.
Pam's is next.
Okay, Pam. Okay. We're a small town, but we have a good supply of public housing. However, they deny the applicants with criminal backgrounds, or if they have been evicted, there's nothing else that is affordable except public housing. Pam, so one of the things we could work on with you, and I have experience doing this work in Austin, and it's not going to be easy, but like I said, nothing worth doing is working with your council and your community to get a preference in place with the Housing Authority for homeless individuals and families, and working with them to relax their criteria for that specific population, which they will initially tell you they legally can't do, but that's not true. So you can email me. I think we'll probably be releasing more guidance on that for everyone soon, but you can email me to get more information on that. Just Cameron, Kameron, at thn.org.
And this is, in these situations, this is where you'll tell someone like me, hey, I need you to get on the phone and talk to these people. Or if you're in town, I need you to come see these people. Because we do need to represent you as advocates as well when we're trying to do something like that.
Carol's asking if we could send the agenda and info a few days before so we can review. We typically do that. My goal is usually to get it out a week before. I will admit, and especially this meeting, that just didn't happen. I did think we got it out last week. Yeah, so Carol, yeah, we do that, but we'll work on doing a better job of that. Sometimes we don't always have the materials prepared a week in advance, but thank you for your comment. And Pam, I'm just seeing you coming back in regarding the preference, so we can work on that criminal background issue.
We will work with you on that, Pam. Please send in your questions.
Forward from random to normal. Oh, he already responded, right? Sorry, we know y'all can hear us. We're just making sure we're answering all these questions. And again, we've got about 10 minutes, and please, please, if you have a question, ask it. Did we not answer it? Or did it not honest? He responded. I said what we're not changing.
Oh.
I mean, I feel like kind of covered that.
Well, you know, I think it's.
Lisa's got a question.
Okay, real quick. You know, there was a comment. Should we talk about? I said, well, we're not changing, and we're not changing. You know, doing what we've done for you. I think there definitely has been an increase in what we're offering you. More webinars, more support, more direct support, more assistance with monitoring of your programs, identifying things and areas where you can improve using data. That we will continue to offer, and in fact we'll increase that as we go along. We have a great group of folks here that can provide you with a lot of assistance, and Cameron's got a good handle on how to organize them to provide that assistance. And so we will not only not quit doing what we've been doing, we will do more. And I think that was what the comment in here was meant to convey. And we have another question or two or three.
Yeah, Lisa's is next.
So.
When are we going, Lisa Griffin, when are we going to get the DV workaround detailed? Lisa, we're not there. We're, like I said, and this is in reference to the VI SPDAT and eventually CE with our COC funded projects. I'm going to tell you that is usually the last step in implementing CE. That's been the case in most communities. So Sophia is going to work with you all on that, and we'll have that workaround for your individual project and then work with your community to get that established in the community. And lucky, you know, sometimes being late to the game can be good because we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we can look to other communities to see how they've done that. I don't know.
Comment. Jeannie says actual question.
And G's
I've
with
heard
DV.
outcomes more important.
I think these are just statements. I wish you guys had us on video. You could see us
I know.
mumbling to one another.
Michelle, yes. I think I'm answering your question or commenting to your statement. Lowering barriers does mean housing folks without employment. Absolutely. Gathering data is always difficult. Whether Jean is Jean a DV provider?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, that's a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
We are in talks with TDHCA about Osmium. For those of you who don't know, Osmium is the HMIS comparable database for our domestic violence providers that hasn't quite been what we expected, and there's a lot of work being done on it. We are also working on a webinar, even though we can't really look at your data or hold it, to help you all through your CAPER, and are in pretty consistent communication with TDHCA about those issues right now.
Yeah, and I'll be meeting with TDHCA and Texas Council for Family Violence about this sometime soon, so we can start working together to try to figure this out together. Any other questions?
Any last questions, y'all? Okay. Well, you know where to find us. Thank you all again for your time and attention today. We will be sending this out along with some resources, and I think we had a request for a couple of resources, like the registration.
Yeah.
So we can add that and send that all out to you all as well. Also, just want to take a moment, if you, regardless of whether you are funded or not, and if you're funded, you should already be signed up, but please sign up for the HUD exchange updates. It's a lot of useful information. I think will really help you all to understand why we're making some of the decisions we're making here in the balance of state. And just again, want to thank you all for all of the hard work you're doing, and we know that you all will get through this. We all will. We will survive. I think we will be stronger and better for it. Right? I keep threatening to sing at these meetings. It'll happen one day. And then we've just put up, and this would have been in the downloadable documents, recommended viewing list. So we've got some things, again, we don't just randomly throw things on the page, folks. Please, please take a look at these. We've included last month's and this month's webinars and recordings. We've got information on upcoming data standards from the HMIS team. Will you scroll up? Which I think probably is like the best video in THN history.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah,
it's
hilarious. You need to watch it. Then we've got all of the coordinated entry work that we've been doing, that Sophia's been doing. We've got some readings, just a brief on the Tier 2 announcement, which I referenced, the Snaps in Focus, the study on the 12 largest continuums, an NAEH post about the Tier 2 awards, what happened.
So are those the two lists you went over?
Yeah. So I think the only thing we don't have is and honestly, the registration notice, again, is posted on the HUD website and easy to find, but we can send out the link to that as well. So we're not seeing anything else. I think, again, just we want to thank you all for your time, for your work, for your energy. We are grieving these losses with you, but we are also very hopeful for the future and feel like we have a very clear direction, and it is a ride we want to take with you. So contact us, please.
And before we get off, I just want to say two things. Look out for emails and communication about our annual conference, THN's annual conference on ending homelessness.
Oh, the registration link, we didn't have it last month, but it is on your webinars to watch and reading materials.
Right.
And it's currently open and probably filling up.
It is, and there are going to be some really good workshops that are specific to you as a CSC, and some workshops that I think may be interesting for your case managers. So keep that in mind. And one more thing, if you work in a community with a project that lost funding or a project that is reallocating their funding, please rally around them, work with them. You guys are a team within your community that works to end homelessness, and without that team, you can't accomplish your goals. So you need everybody involved, so please support them, especially now that they need that support.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I got.
All right. Thank you all. Hang in there with us. We're hanging in there with you, and we will talk to you soon.